Hi, today I'm going to make a birthday card. It's very simple, very quick, and I'm going to go through all the steps, one by one. This is the front of the card. It's going to be a birthday card for my brother David. Okay, let's get started. I have a list of every bit of the papers that I was using. You can fast forward through this part or pause the video and write down the pieces that I use in case you want to replicate it. These are the different inks that I use. You can substitute any one that you have that's a similar color or make your own palette if you want to. I also listed the Spectrum Noir Sparkle Pen, which I highly recommend that you get one if you don't have it already. These are the different stamps that I use. You can substitute anything you have. These are the die cuts. I specifically use the large bubble and the uh, medium-sized stitch rectangle. These are the standard tools that I'm using. I highly recommend you get the Misty. I've mentioned it before. And I use my Big Shot with my magnetic platform with a precision plate because of the die cutting. You can fast forward through this part too to speed things up a little. Oh, one thing about the precision base plate, make sure you turn it over and cut on the black side. Don't make the same mistake that I did, which was to cut on the wrong side and ruin it. You can use whichever color pencils you want to do your coloration. You would want to make sure that you have several shades of each tone so that you can get variations in shadowing. Since I have a pig, I have 3 shades of pink. I have 2 shades of green for the pants and 3 shades of blue. I also used one of the blues to lightly color in the wings on the pig to make it appear that it was shimmery. And of course, you need your water pen. Okay, I sped this part up. I'm starting to stamp the pig and the sentiment. I've already pre-positioned all of my stamps on the Misty to speed things up and make it more efficient as I go through. And here I'm starting the die cutting with the Big Shot. You have better luck with the die cutting if you tilt your project just a little bit as you scroll it through the Big Shot so that you get less cracking and popping as you crank it through. And you see that I got a really big pop on that time, both times. And hopefully you can see the stitching around the edge of that square. And for the sentiment, I realized that I should have stamped it a little bit higher than I did, but I still believe I had enough room. And I turned it a little bit, as I mentioned, and see it doesn't pop as much. Now I'm going to start coloring the pig. I sped this part up a lot because you don't need to slowly watch me doing all the coloring. Notice how I'm using the darker shade of pink on the left side of the pig, which will be where the shadow is coming from. If you only had one color of pink, then you could do the same thing by starting with a very thin layer of pink and then going over on the left side a little darker. When you use the water pen, it will naturally pick up the shading as it blends out the color. If you didn't have watercolor pencils and you had regular pencils, you can do the exact same thing using your regular colored pencils, and instead of the water pen, use baby oil. But you have to lose just a very slight amount of baby oil because a little will last a long time. And if you use too much, your work will get kind of messy. I'll do a video sometime in the future showing how to do blending with watercolor pencils. Sorry, oil-based pencils. But it's the same technique that you do for the water base. I don't think you can see very well the wings, but it really gives it a really nice touch. If you had left it completely white, it would be obvious that there was coloring everywhere except on the wings. That's why I added the little blue. And when you're watercoloring with the water brush, be sure that you let the different areas dry before you start blending the color. So I have to jump from place to place around the image to make sure that I don't accidentally run one color area into the other when I add the water. And you'll see me wait a little bit to let it dry a little bit. Okay, the sparkle I'm going to add on the tip of the arrow, but I'm going to do that after the card is assembled to ensure that I don't accidentally blur it or smear it because it stays wet a little bit. I decided to add a little bit of shadowing around the edge of the sentiment using my dauber and my tumbled glass distress ink. I thought it needed a little bit highlight on the edges. I think you can see it. Okay, now I'm going to stamp the two banners. And using the Misty tool, it makes it very simple to use a silhouette stamp like this, which is a very heavy colored background. So that when you first stamp it, if you don't get a good impression, as you can see I didn't, then you can re-stamp it, re-ink it, and then stamp it right on top. And I decided that 2 was good enough for the brown one. And now I'm moving on to the second color, and I have to do an adjustment because that stamp is a thinner one, so I have to put the foam back in that I removed to do the first stamp. And holding it in place with my magnet. This one I needed to do quite a few impressions because this is a relatively light colored ink. And you see me double check to make sure that the original image didn't move so that I don't get a shadow image. Sorry for the blur of the light on the upper part of the Misty there. I still am trying to get my lighting correct. So there's a very bad glare there. So you just take the scissors and trim out the banner edge. And for this blue strip, I'm adding a few music notes in 2 different colors to give it a little bit more interest. And I'm holding my block kind of strangely because my fingernails are very, very long and they were getting in the way. So it's not necessary to hold the block that way. I just happened to find that was the only way I could hold it and not stick my fingers in the ink. And I just kept going until I thought that there was enough coverage. Most of this will be hidden, but it still brought a lot of interest to have it on there. Of course, I'll clean those stamps later. Now I'm moving to the inside of the card. Be sure that the outside is showing the indented part and the inside has the raised part, so that when you fold it, you don't get a break in the paper from the weakness of the inner fold. And I took all of the stamps that I was going to be using and put them on the same block in order. And I laid them on the card and then covered them with the block and picked them all up at once. And that saved a lot of time. And again, I'll clean that stamp later. And I wanted to add a couple of spare music notes flying around the page. And it looked like it needed one at the bottom. And that's all I'm going to do for the inside. Now I'm going to start assembling the card. Using my bone folder, make sure I got a good crease on the card, and checking to make sure that I have the card right side up so that I don't inadvertently assemble it with the card front on the back of the card instead of the front of the card. And check it one more time just to be sure. And I moved that paper because I thought it was in the way. It's hard to see. And I didn't show it, but I did a little sponging of blue on the paper there to tie it in with the blue in the background. And because the paper is a little heavy, I decided to use the Tombow instead of the tape gun. Checking one more time to make sure that I had the card the right way up. Because this has been watercolored on it, the paper is going to be a little bit warped. So be sure to put a lot of tape on the back of any panels that you are watercoloring to make sure it stays down and stays flat. And I wanted to pop it up with foam tape, so I'm just eyeballing the right length that I need and make sure I have good coverage so it doesn't puck in the middle. And now I want to make sure that I have enough room to put the two banners. When I did this, I realized that I should have left a little bit of extra paper on the left side of the banner so that I could use it to tape easier onto the panel, but this will work the way I have it. I just have to be careful that it stays put. And I'm going to use the adhesive of the foam tape to help me stick it in. You see me struggling to get it to stick a little bit. It would be easier if I had left a long piece of paper on the left side. Checking one more time to make sure that I have the card the right direction. And lining it up, making sure it's straight, and putting it on. And this has a few layers on it, so I want to make sure that the part that's hanging free is up with foam tape, and the other part, the right hand side, doesn't need the foam tape because it's already too many layers, so I just put a little glue. And I realized I cut the foam tape a little bit too much, so it has a weird buckle there, but it still looks all right. And that's the card. I hope David likes it. I think he will. And if you have any questions, please feel free to comment on the video, and there's a materials list listed down. Oh, I decided to sparkle the wings a little bit with my Spectrum Noir Twin. When you have been using watercolor, you have to be careful. Sometimes it picks up the ink and moves it around a little bit, so you just have to be sure to clean your brush tip when you're finished so you don't pick up the color, and be really gentle. And I also had to do the red for the heart. You have to do this really slowly so you don't accidentally go and glitter up outside of where you're trying to draw. That's why I'm going so slowly here. Okay, that's it. Hold it up a little bit. Hopefully you can see the glitter on the wings and the arrow tip. I think it came out pretty well. Okay, be sure to leave a comment and let me know what you think. Take care.